Welcome to the Shine the Way podcast. I'm your host, Jake Blake, and today I'm joined by Jay Gifford. Jay is the GM of Corporate Partnerships through KSHSAA, the Kansas State High School Athletics Association. Jay took this job in 2025, and prior to that, for a number of years, from 2006 to 2025, he's the District Athletic Director for USD 443, which is the Dodge City Public Schools. Prior to that, he was an activities coordinator in the district. And even before that, he was the dean of students and assistant athletic director at Dodge City High School. So he is a Dodge City High School guy through and through. He's got a number of achievements. He's the executive director for KIAA at the time, board member and former president founder for the Dodge City Sports Commission, KSHSAA Calendar Task Force Committee, strategic planning, finance chair, KIAA District Athletic Director of the Year in 2014, tournament director for KSHSAA State Basketball, event director, founder, Wild West Bowl, six-man football championship, tournament coordinator of various regional and sub-state tournaments, including the largest boys invitational basketball tournament in the state of Kansas, American Sports Builder Association Distinguished Turf Facility Award. He presented at the NIAAA National Conference in Nashville, as well as the KIAA Athletic Administrator State Conference 3 times, and the KABC and KSHSAA coaching clinics 3 different times. 1999 Kansas Class 6A Baseball Coach of the Year, 1999 Class 6A Baseball State Champions. And as he mentioned when we were meeting earlier, even more important, he's married to Wendy, almost 33 years, coming up on 33 years, and has 3 wonderful children doing some amazing things. So welcome, Jay.
Hey, I appreciate it. That bio reads like somebody that just doesn't know how to say no. That's all that reads.
Well, that's why you're here today. You couldn't tell Brian no, so
That's exactly right. I'm still bad at saying no.
and it's my benefit. So just like many other people have benefited, it's my benefit. And honestly, when I was looking at the bio you sent me, I mean, this was meant to be, because on here on the very top it says your vision is to let my light shine and provide opportunities for the student athletes of Kansas to enjoy their moment in the spotlight. So if that doesn't fit with the Shine the Way podcast, I don't know what does. So
It's
uh,
yeah. I mean, I've been intrigued ever since Brian turned me on to the podcast, and lots of other bios, the guys you've had on that are much more impressive than mine, and that's really cool. But yeah, I mean, isn't that all of our mission is to shine a light and try to show others the way, and even sometimes when we don't walk the way, we can still shine the light of hey, don't do this, do something else. So do something different or better.
absolutely, and that's why I'm super excited. That you've taken. Obviously, you were a baseball coach, 1999 state champ, so you know that avenue as well. But you had a little bit different role, which we're going to get into later, as kind of overseeing the coaching, have to hiring coaches, and different things like that. That you may not directly be in the gym or on the football field impacting those kids, but you're impacting them by your choices of through the interview process. And everybody that I've talked to so far on this podcast, that could be their vision, to shine the light. I mean, they all feel called to do what they do and to try to bless the next person. And so yeah, let's just jump into it. Young Jay, what sports did you play growing up?
So I obviously enjoyed playing sports growing up, and I was fortunate in second grade. My family moved from Oklahoma to Texas, Amarillo, Texas, and I heard they were having a basketball team. I show up to the tryouts, and the guy that's coaching that team, uh, he ended up coaching not only our third grade. It was my after my second grade year. My third grade basketball team. The same guy, Bruce Ford, coached us in football, basketball, track, baseball, and then even one year of soccer. So we talked him into not doing. We had elementary school track, and we said, "Coach, let's do soccer instead." And he said, "I don't know anything about soccer." And we said, "Perfect. That's even better." Uh, So I had the same coach for third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Some of those school sports there in middle school, he didn't coach, but he coached us in some sports all of those years. And so it wasn't just for fun, it was a lifestyle, it was our friend group. It was our parents' friend group. We all went to the same school, elementary schools, then junior high, and then eventually high school. So it just became a way of life for us. And Monday through Friday, we played sports, and we all went to church on Sunday. And there was a rhythm to life that was, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. The way we were raised and the opportunities we were given on the poorest side of Amarillo. We didn't know we were poor. We didn't know everybody else had stuff we didn't have. We thought everybody had little houses, and we thought they were really close together, and we thought everybody played outside till it was dark. It was much later in life when we figured out we had a different upbringing than many other kids.
Staying right there with that coach, I mean, that's a pretty unique situation. I mean, I don't think that happens very often in today's society, poor, not poor, anything. It just, for one reason or another, something would happen to where that coach would not be coaching after a couple of years. Either you need a new voice or somebody gets sideways. So that's a pretty unique thing that you encountered there. And, whether you knew it or not, you're probably blessed because the group of parents opted to stay with him for 6, 7 years. And he obviously led you to loving the sports world. And I felt like when I was hearing that, there was a few kids that I've coached that I coached them in baseball, basketball, soccer with my sons. And I'm pretty sure when it was time for them to move on to bigger and better things, they were pretty excited to get away from me. But, uh, my whole goal in all three of those sports was not so much the technical aspects of the sport. It was more about learning how to compete and just enjoy the competition, because I felt like in youth, if we can teach kids how to compete and enjoy that, enjoy the failures, learn from the failures, get right back up and keep going, that when they do get to that person that can teach them the true technical abilities, because I didn't know soccer at all, like that's when they can flourish, because they already understand how to compete. And then they're starting to get better athletes and starting to hit puberty and do all those things. So now it's just making sure they have the technical skills. And I've seen it with my oldest son. He knew how to compete. My youngest son, he's learned how to compete. And there's one of his buddies is probably one of the best competitors I've ever seen. And he has a shot to play varsity as a freshman because of that reason. He's a good athlete. He's a good basketball player, but he does not shy away from competition at all. And that's a big thing in today's society.
It's amazing. You've probably heard it. ESPN's seems like nonstop running on their channels that they're partnering with the Disney Foundation because 4 out of 10 kids are participating, and fewer and few kids are playing youth sports because it's being very specialized, and it's becoming a lot of the club and travel, and you hear those stats and you're a little taken back, and you think how much this guy was a volunteer, and he was a volunteer coach that just wanted kids to play. And I tell our coaches all the time, especially at your entry level programs, your middle school and your freshman level, if you have a bunch of kids that played for you this year and they want to play next year, you've probably accomplished what you needed to do. That is this day and age, if you can keep kids doing it year after year, you've accomplished something. And it doesn't have to be drawing up X's and O's or an elaborate offense or defense or traveling all over the world. If kids enjoy what they're doing, they enjoy being around each other, and they learn how to compete, that's the hook. And sometimes as parents, we want to we're just as entrapped or more entrapped by the idea of a trophy than kids are. Kids, we throw a lot of things in front of kids to motivate them, when the real motivation is having fun, being with their friends, and being able to compete to become better at what they do, or even just the actual feeling of competition is enough for a lot of kids to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. So after you went through that, you got to middle school. What direction did you go? Did you start to pare it down to maybe two, three sports, or were you still trying to play a little bit of everything?
Yeah, so that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. You just whatever was next, you played, and it may not be your best sport, but it was your buddy's best sport, so you played, and so I still played football, basketball, baseball, track as well in middle school. Hated track mostly because I was bad at it, and that's genetics. That's my parents' fault. That's not my fault. And my son ran college track, and he says he wasn't any better than he was simply because of his parents, and he was right. Um,
Yeah.
but then in high school, that's when one of them had to go because baseball becomes a high school sport at that point, and that was an easy decision. So it just became football, basketball, baseball through the high school years, and then in the summer, uh, we played baseball, and you lifted a little bit for football and did some conditioning and 1 week of basketball camp. It wasn't this daily workout, 1,000 shots. It was you did enough to let the coach know, yeah, you're still going out for the team next year. And mostly it was baseball in the summer, but football workouts. I mean, so they could see you sweat a little bit, but that was the rhythm for all the way through high school.
Yeah, and that's what you mentioned there is that's the way I grew up as well in a small town in Kansas. Is you just did what was next, even if it wasn't your best sport. And one of the things I felt like it teaches you a different role where maybe you are the quarterback for football, but on the basketball court, you're just a good athlete, but you can't shoot a lick or something. And so now you got to find that niche. How can I help the team? Can I defend? Can I rebound? Can I do all the little things? And the kids that you can watch, like I've a buddy of mine, his son Drew Parks, he was the quarterback, and specifically who was in mine, like not the best shooter, but the kid never quit hustling on the basketball court, and so he constantly was impacting games just because I've played against him as a 44-year-old man, and it's miserable. He's way too good of an athlete for me, but he just doesn't ever. Even when he's tired, he's not tired, and he found out that okay, I'm a good quarterback. I'm a good defender in basketball. I can shoot it a little bit, but I can really play defense. And so he found that role. And then in baseball, he wasn't necessarily the best hitter always, but he could cover a lot of ground in center field. And so just going from step to step to figure out how can I impact the team in a positive way. Maybe today I don't get my number called, maybe tomorrow I do, but what can I do to impact the team?
And it was never. I think the mentality of multi-sport athletes too. I think it helps the mental health of a kid because I think when you start specializing, your end goal's always I'm specializing because I'm going to get a college scholarship. That's the end game for most kids nowadays. Back then, of course, I was raised in a situation where there weren't a lot of kids going to college, but the idea was never, I hope I have a great game season because it's going to lead to something else. The end result was the end of the game. Like, we're going to win or lose, and we're going to do it together. And at the end of the season, we're going to win a championship, or we're going to fall short, but we're going to fall short doing the best we can. Like, we only thought through the end of that season, and we only thought through the end of that year, and we never did things for the motivation of something that was going to happen way out in the future. And maybe that's, I don't know, some goal setting guys might say that's a bad idea. I can tell you, mental health wise, it's okay as a kid to be in the moment, to enjoy what's happening right in front of you, and not putting a whole lot of stock in, is this going to help my draft stock, or is this going to help me get a college scholarship, or is somebody going to see me or discover me? Um, the idea of playing sports because they're fun, because there's a scoreboard, and because you enjoy doing it with friends, that's enough. And I don't know. That's not very popular, and maybe I'll get a reprimand from my bosses at KSHSAA, but I don't think so, because I think they're the same mindset that the game is enough, and what it teaches is enough, and anything that happens beyond that, cool. We're all for it. We're supportive, but the game is enough. I tell my kids that. My I have a senior that just graduated, and this summer they have wore my backyard out playing wiffle ball. And I tell people all the time, I'll send them a picture and say, the game's enough. The game's enough. So there's something to it.
Yeah, it's again, kids like to be with their buddies, whether boy, girl, it doesn't matter. They like to hang out with their friends. And if the friends want to go play sand volleyball and just have fun, they can go play sand volleyball. Or if they want to play pickleball, wiffle ball, go swimming, hang at the pool for a little bit. Probably one of the biggest adjustments as a parent I've had to make is understanding that listening to what the kids are saying. My kids, are they tired, and do they maybe need to take tonight off from this club practice? And if so, I'll have a conversation with the coach, or they can have the first conversation with the coach. And then if it goes further and they get reprimanded for missing a day, then we'll be like, all right, what's the big picture here? His body's tired. He's growing. Relax. Like, it's okay. He'll be there tomorrow. And even sometimes when they do that, they still get like a 15-minute soccer ball touch workout in. Nothing crazy, but they did touch the ball a little bit. So they still are
Right.
getting a touch on it. But every now and then you just got to take a break. I know as us as adults, when we come home from work, sometimes before you jump into the duties around the house, you got to sit down and just kind of take a second and be like, man, that was a good day, bad day, whatever.
Right.
Put it beside you so you can focus on what's going on in the home.
Well, I think that's biblical. I think that's one of the 10 Commandments is to take a day off. We take it super serious in our household. Our kids didn't get to play on Sundays. It didn't matter if we were in the semifinals, the championship game. It didn't matter. They knew we were going to go to church as a family because that's where you are best as a family. When you're in that church pew, I've rarely seen people throwing punches, or every once in a while you get a glare, depending on what age they are, and if you're having to calm them down. But you're at your best as a family and as a person when you're at church. And that happens on Sundays. The world can say it doesn't, it does. It happens on Sunday mornings. And it's a tradition. It's in there for a reason. And I've always thought that it put everything in our house in priority. Hey, this sports aren't more important than our spiritual walk, and sports aren't more important than our relationship with Christ. So when that's established, and you know that that's a non-negotiable, we're going to church on Sunday as a family, and nothing supersedes that. I mean, we had our occasions, but nothing supersedes that. That's a boundary for a kid that makes them feel comfortable, gives them rest, builds that day in you're talking about. Like, people look at me like I'm crazy, especially when I was the coach, and said, "Hey, we won't be there tomorrow. You guys decide what you want to do, but me and my kid aren't going to be there." And sometimes they would say, "Wow, it's really, I mean, is that just something you're doing as a show?" And I said, "Kinda. Yeah, I'm showing my kid that what the priorities are in this house, and I hope someday they carry those priorities on with them." And so the rest thing is biblical. I mean, you nailed it. It's biblical, and there's a reason why it's in there. We're built that way, and
Mm-hmm.
if God tells you you're built that way, we're kind of fools for thinking we're not.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. 100%. And I know there was some kids growing up that I encountered that was their principles is Sunday, and it's not baseball, it's not basketball day, it's rest day and family day. And as a kid, sometimes you understand it, sometimes you don't. But to their credit, and it sounds like to your credit, these are what we stand by. These are our principles for our family. We're not saying you have to do it, but we're going to do it. And kudos to you for holding tight to that. Um, so you're graduating high school, and was it something that you was teaching, education, interacting in the schools? Was that always the goal, or how did we end up in the school system?
Yeah, it's a multi-layered answer. I was lucky enough in high school. I moved to Dodge City my junior year, so everything was set in Amarillo, and you know where your spot is, and you know where you're going to get to play. And my dad calls me right at the end of the school year at a baseball tournament in El Paso. Calls on a payphone at the mall because we're at a movie, and he says, "I don't want you to hear this from anybody else, but we're moving to Dodge City, Kansas." And in hindsight, I don't know who I was going to hear that from. There was no social media. I'd have to run into somebody from Dodge City, Kansas, and El Paso to probably find out. But I said, "Is that place even real? Wasn't that like off a TV show or something?" And he said, "Yeah, it's real." And so my junior summer, I moved to Dodge City, and I played football for Dick Masters, who one of the winningest coaches in Kansas football history. Here for he was a head coach for like 28 years here. I played basketball for Dennis Hamilton, who was here for over 30 years. I played for Coach Hamilton, coached for Coach Hamilton, and then was Coach Hamilton's boss, if that's wasn't really, but I was the AD when he was the coach, and so those two guys, of course, made a big impact on what it means to be a good coach and a good mentor and all the things. But I went to school pre-pharmacy, and after my junior year, organic two, my professor called me in and said, "I really like being your advisor, and you're a nice kid. You seem personable. You're just not very good at chemistry, and you're going to need that if you're going to be a pharmacist." He said, "I'll make you a deal. I won't count this final towards your final grade if you'll choose to go into teaching." And I thought, you know, this guy seems smart, and I seem not so smart. So maybe this will be perfect. So I declared, and I was going to get out earlier. So I declared to teach science. I was already had blown my knee out for the second time in college, and the coach had asked me if I'd be willing to grad assistant when I was done. So I asked him if I could just be done playing, be done with the rehab, start coaching immediately so that I could get ready for my career. He was nice enough to keep me on scholarship, let me grad assistant for 2.5 years as I finished. And that's how I got into the education world. Was I wasn't, be glad I'm not your pharmacist today.
You never know. Some of those concoctions might be pretty
No doubt.
interesting.
No telling what I'd be cooking up.
Well, that's interesting, because that's one of the things I like to talk to people about is how did you get to where you're at? And obviously, so you went into teaching, and is it a natural progression for not everybody, obviously, but for some of you, you start as a teacher, maybe even a coach, and then you just naturally grow in? Because I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that's getting ready to go into college or coming out of college thinking, I'm going to be a high school athletic director. That's the ultimate goal. They may end up getting there. It seems like to me the position usually comes open, and there's some applications, and people are like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So is that typically for the role of athletic director? You just kind of work your way into it, kind of like a promotion at a regular for-profit business?
It's almost always that way, simply for I think a couple of reasons. Number one, you know how it is. You look back at things in your life, and you're like, how did that happen, or what? And I don't believe in that. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in happenstance. I believe if you will listen, the Holy Spirit will prod you in the direction you need to go, and if you'll listen, and sometimes it takes a little windy path, usually our own direction, not his. His is usually straighter,
Yep.
but we like to do it ourselves. So you look back and you're like, man, I can see the hand of providence in every one of these, places I was supposed to be. And hopefully you listen enough that you can be impactful. So my thought process was, once I went into education, just what you said, I will be a teacher and a coach forever. I was lucky enough, Mr. Rickenberg, who was a athletic director here for 20 years in Dodge City, and my athletic director in high school, a legend, football coach. He called me and said, after 1 year of coaching, said, hey, you want to be the head baseball coach at Dodge City High School? I was at Campus High School in Wichita. And I said, do you have an opening? And he said, yeah, I have an opening, and I won't interview if you'll take the job. And I said, okay, let's do it. So took the job over the phone, in the back of my classroom. And as I went through that, I coached football, basketball, baseball, and I got to coach for Coach Masters, Coach Hamilton, and then I had my own program. But as you're going, you start getting to the point where you're like, man, I'm making an impact on these kids, and this feels good. It's hard. There's ups, there's downs. Not every parent loves you, but it's impactful. And at some point, I think some coaches, not all, some really are comfortable in that and they are content and they know that's their place. And I never quite had that contentment of this is what you're going to do forever. I thought it was, but I would start thinking about, hey, this is what we should be doing department wide. And maybe we should try this in other programs. And I would listen to other coaches and say, hey, I love what you're doing there. I'm going to do that in my program. And I was always that guy trying to try something new, try something different, see what somebody else is doing. And at some point when the job opened up, I'm like, I think I want to do this because I want to make this impact across the board. I don't really want to be anybody's boss. I want to be their mentor. I want them to open their eyes to all the things we have out here that can make them better at what they do, because that just impacts kids more and more and more and better and better. And so I think that's what happens. I think some people are content with one program and some get that taste and they go, I want to do this, but I want to multiply it. And I think it happens to pastors, and I think it happens to guys that like building houses, and I think it happens to lots of areas where some people are happy doing exactly what they're doing and they do it well, and that's probably what they should do. And there's nothing wrong with it. And some people go, okay, I've got to show somebody else how to do this, and I want to talk to somebody else about it, and I want to bring somebody young along because I think they can do it. Those are the kind of people that usually end up in jobs where you're impacting the adults that are then impacting the kids, or they're impacting the mid managers, they're impacting the actual workers. I think that's how that thought process goes for a lot of ADs.
I have a couple of different things from your conversation there. First of all, you mentioned many times the path God lays out is straight. It may be slow, but it's straight. I equate that to sometimes when I see there's a traffic jam ahead, I'll be the guy that'll dive off on the first exit. We'll go on the road that's 20 to 30 miles an hour for 45 minutes just because I'm moving.
Right.
I'm not going in the right direction. I want to go this way, but I'm actually going that way, but I am moving. Whereas this way that the Lord has laid out for me feels like I'm stationary.
Yep.
And so I do that in a car. And I know I've done that in my spiritual life as well, where I should be he said, go this way, be patient. It's not my time, it's his time. But I'm like, I can get to where I think he wants me to be if I go this way and loop around a couple times. And so that was an excellent point there. And then the other one you mentioned was similar. So I had the executive pastor of Westside Family Church, Jeff Manford, on here. And he said something very similar to what you just mentioned about roles, right? He said, you as a business, whether it's a church, a high school, a baseball team, whatever it may be, when you get people in the role they're meant to be in, that's when things flourish.
Absolutely.
And even it goes to what you just said, like you won a state baseball championship. So you were a good coach, and you probably could have really impacted a lot of kids if you'd have just stayed there. But there might have come a time where you became not as good of a coach because you just weren't getting truly fulfilled. You weren't doing what you wanted to do. And so that makes a lot of sense. And that actually leads me into, so Brian Myers got us together here. And one of the things I do when I have time is I ask people for quotes. So Brian gave me a quote about Jay Gifford.
Hey, do you have a pause on that machine? Because do you need to pause or not?
No, it's a good one. I vetted it. I ran it through about 4 different AIs and said, take out the bad stuff from Brian. But so here we go. When Jake asked me to recommend a guest for Shine the Way, Jay immediately came to mind. His energy, drive, and passion for elevating every project he touches is unmatched. Jay has an incredible ability to surround himself with talented, driven people and somehow make everyone around him want to be better, dream bigger, and be part of the journey. What makes Jay truly special is the impact he has on the people around him. He has influenced my professional and personal life in ways that are difficult to put into words. He is far more than a friend. He is family. I know Jay would bring incredible energy, insight, and authenticity to Shine the Way. He is the kind of person whose story, perspective, and passion can inspire others to elevate themselves and the world around them. I am grateful for everything he has done for me, and I cannot think of a better person to share his story on the podcast. Thank you for everything, Jay. Brian.
Wow, that is those are kind words, man. I don't know what to say. He's as you know, or maybe you don't know, but I think you do because you know Brian. He is one of those talented people that you give him a task and he comes back to you and you're like, what did I want you to do originally? Because this is like 10 times bigger,
Mm-hmm.
better. I mean, that guy is so talented and he's so smart and he's giving. Yeah, I mean, all the things he said about me are only reflections of how he and several others. And it's kind of funny that him and a whole group, a core group of guys at that kind of same age, same development of their careers, John Hanson and Sean Steiner and just Steve Rankin. And there's all these guys at Dodge City High School. We work together to do a lot of really fun and cool stuff. But I always told them, guys, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in big, big trouble. And then they would all assure me, you're not. You're not at all the smartest guy in the room. So those are nice, very nice words of Brian. He's an all-star. Concordia, has him now in their school system, and they're
Mm-hmm.
better for it. He's just, you know this. When you open your eyes to people and you say, I want to pour into somebody because I see something in them, if you will truly believe in that person and just spend a little bit of time letting them know that you appreciate what they do, you get blown away. I mean, it just multiplies. And he's just a great example of that, and several others just like him. That we just, it makes what we do fun, and it makes what we do meaningful, and it makes what we do worthwhile because yeah, it's that multiplication of talents and that multiplication of attitude, and he's a great one. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. So, and the reason I wanted to insert his quote there, after I've read it a couple of times, and I was impressed. Like, it was good. It was a great quote, and I've known
We were
Brian.
both impressed Brian could come up with that many words in a row that they were seamless.
Yeah, it was really good. Uh, I was shocked. uh, I've known Brian. He was a couple years ahead of me in high school, and him and our buddy Dustin Parks and my buddy Brian Pierce. I mean, I bet we played 1,000 games of 2-on-2, and I think Brian, my team probably holds a 51-49 win percentage against them. I'm throwing that out there. I think so. But every time I see him and do stuff and hear things that he's doing, it just felt like, to me, something in the Dodge City community, in the Dodge City school district, something kind of opened him up to all of the talents that he truly has. I mean, his cooking is impeccable. The way he's done some stuff with woodworking, obviously he does a great job in school administration and in teaching, and so when he was telling me about you, and then I read this quote, I was like, okay, it just felt like, to me, his story had somebody that was there helping, and
That's it. I'll
so
tell you
that's.
this. It's interesting that Brian's a good example of this, but people like Brian, there's lots of, well, maybe not people like Brian, there's lots of people that do things well, and Brian's a great example too of someone, if it's in his wheelhouse, the creativity and the effort is unbelievable. But when it's not in his wheelhouse, either something he doesn't enjoy doing or something he doesn't think he's great at, and maybe it's not a natural gift, he still does it. And he still does it well. He still does it to the full amount of his ability. Like, I always say that's kind of the difference between those that really get it and really get the purpose behind things and those that really just like to shine. Because there's lots of people out there that do things well, but ask them to do something they're not great at, and you don't get the same effort. You don't get the
Mhm.
same, energy. You get the same attitude. He's one of those guys that even in the things he's not talented at or as talented at, he still gives great effort, great attitude, and that's what was special about that team. Every team has to be made up of guys that have specific roles, but they're also not afraid to just do something because it needs done, and that's a great team.
I completely agree. And finding those people that are talented, obviously, a lot of people are very successful when they're in that niche that they're passionate about. Put them and make them uncomfortable a little bit with a request to do this task or that task. And so that's where you truly see their character and their willingness to dig in and figure it out. And I think we've sung Brian's praises enough, but
Yeah, for sure,
he,
for sure.
he does a great job at that. Uh,
I just told someone that was interviewing for a job. They said, "What are key things I look for when I hear a candidate talk?" I said, "Ask them a few things that aren't their job, and the second they say, 'Well, I don't really think that's my job,' run away." Because at some point it's all your job, especially as a
mhm.
leader, as a head coach, as an athletic director. Rarely is something truly not your job.
Yeah, so before we get to what your current role is and the why behind what you're doing today, I want to know the why behind and what your role as an athletic director is, and just the why behind, like, how did you determine this is how I can impact this community and make a positive impact not only on the coaches and the teachers and everybody that I interact with, but it trickles the trickle down effect.
Yeah, and the thing is about the athletic role at the high school level is it's so different either district by district or by classification. Like I know I was the executive director of the ADs Association for about a year, 2 years, not quite 2 years. And you talk to the 1A athletic director at a small town where he schedules the games, he hires the coaches, he sweeps the gym floor, he drives the bus, he teaches all day long, and he shows up to a few of your trainings because you guilt him into it. And you're like, man, that guy has no time to do anything but lead by example. And there's nothing wrong with leading by example, it's what we should be doing. But there's no other time for them to sit down with a coach and have a conversation or to plan something that's way far out or a special event. Like, it's hard to be a one man show and do some of the quote unquote fun things or visionary things of being an athletic director. Some still do it, especially when you get to be a veteran and you're able to turn over some of that or you get in that rhythm. You figure some of that out, but those are hard jobs. And then some of the 6A jobs, um, you have a district athletic director, and some of your job may be assistant principal, maybe not, but depending on your role may be just as much academic as it is athletics, or it may be simply you have a secretary or don't. We were lucky here. We had an administrative assistant, Tracy Graves. Like, I didn't even know at some point in my career what Keisha wanted for paperwork because I never did it. Like, that's yours. Keep us out of Keisha jail. Make sure our kids are eligible. Let me know if there's a problem. Um, and I worked with another guy that we had as an activity director, Sean Steiner, and before that, Timmy Preston, who was a legend in her own. They had their own sports and activities, so I got to cast vision, and I got to do special events that shine spotlights on kids, and I got to do what I thought was the fun part of the job, and that was the true leadership role of it. So what did I get to do? I did a lot of hiring, a little bit of helping guys find and ladies find a different place to do, maybe at a different setting. Um, we talked earlier about assistant coaches or head coaches want to become ADs. Every assistant at some point's told, you're a great assistant, you should be a head coach. And that's not true. There's lots of great assistants that should stay great assistants. And that's their role. And that's where they should be. And that's where their most impact is. And so you have to have those conversations. So, in the best part of my job, it was leading and pouring into people and helping them see blind spots and developing a relationship that wasn't about, do you have a job next year? It was about, how do we impact more kids? How do we do this better? Wouldn't this be cool to do? Wouldn't this be meaningful or memorable for kids? The hardest part, of course, is if you don't have some of those people to take some of that management off of you, or if you are the only one and you're a one person show and you're the entire game night worker and staff. Um, so in Kansas, that role is so varied and so multifaceted. But I would challenge, and I have challenged principals, if you'll let your athletic director have enough time to breathe and have a cup of coffee, I promise you, they're also some of the most creative and hardworking people you have. Give them the chance to do some of that because leading is why they got into it. And that's the best part of being an AD is when you actually get to lead people and help so they can lead kids.
So with that, you talked about your role. You got to do some hiring. Hopefully, you never had to do any firing. But in a role such as yourself, at some point you're going to have tough conversations. And so, what is it like? What are some things when you are looking for that new volleyball coach or that new wrestling coach that you are? What are the core principles you typically are looking for in that leader? And then on the other side, even though those are tough conversations, I go back to that something Jeff Manfred said is that sometimes there is a time and a place where they're not in the right role. They're probably not happy. And so a lot of people will hang on because they need the paycheck, but they could actually be set free. So how do you, one, what are you looking for over here to hire? But if that doesn't go right and you realize, oh, this coach, head coach, assistant isn't in the right role, how do you have those tough conversations?
The hiring, once again, it's different in different locations too. Our pool is different than a pool in the Kansas City area.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do some recruiting. We have to call people and say, have you considered what we offer here? And that is usually a higher salary. It's usually a different pace of life, good or bad, um, a different cost of living for many. And so we would bring out the positives of living in our community. We're still a one high school town. Friday nights are still special. Tuesday nights are still special. You play with the same group of kids. It's a great place to raise your kids. Those sort of things. And because there's some things that we can't offer that some other places offer. So when you go really west of Wichita, those ADs are recruiting people to apply for their jobs. So already that is a relationship you're building. Because if you recruit three coaches to apply and they all three apply, you're going to tell two of them, well, I told you you should consider this. Now I've decided you're not an option. That in itself is a bit of a hard conversation. And then we have to grow our own a lot. And we got better at that over the years. They're doing a nice job right now of that, where we're hiring our head coaches from within because they've learned the Dodge City way. They've learned what it takes to keep kids out for sports and how to manage other sports because we have lots of multi-sport athletes and facilities and youth programs. So growing your own is a big deal. So when looking for a head coach, it seems to me the thing that you have to initially find out, and none of it's easy, is do they like kids? Because a lot of them like themselves. A lot of them like winning. A lot of them like X's and O's. And none of that's bad. But if any of that is above, I like coaching kids. I like seeing kids succeed. I like kids getting the credit for working hard and buying in. So the second you start hearing, I've always won, or I've always dreamed of being the head coach, or I've always thought that this is the way we should do it, those are usually red flags that while they may even have some success, is that really somebody you want coaching your kids? You have to really dig deep in those interviews to figure out, number one, do they like kids? And do they truly like kids? And not kids as pawns. Like, do they like the ones that are really good? And do they like the ones that never can find their pants and you're always having to send a coach in to help them get ready for practice? Like, do they genuinely like kids? That says something about their spirit too.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you have a coach that likes kids and wants to be around kids and enjoys kids and thinks that it's a meaningful profession. Then you start going through the layers of, have they had success? How do they define success? Um, I think language. We just hammered language all the time. I never changed. Some people said I was old fashioned. I didn't care. Um, if you can't be professional enough to use appropriate language with kids, then you're not professional enough. And I just said that over and over again. Were we perfect? No. I would have to call in a coach and say, hey, I heard practice something slipped. They would say, yes, I apologize to the team. Won't let it happen again. And I would remind them, like I would anybody else, you heard that word somewhere. What are you putting in? What are you putting into your own mind? What are the things you're listening to? Who are you hanging around? Because we're no different than kids. Trash in, trash out.
Oh
So
yeah.
we would talk about, how do we talk to kids? And it's not always curse words. Oftentimes it is, but oftentimes it's just negative or sarcasm. Like, language is the way coaches communicate, and it has to be, you have to be effective or you're not good. And you can win games f bombing kids to the world, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to trade wins for that. So you have to find out if they like kids. You have to find out if they're willing to model habits that, in my opinion, were good for kids. And I think a lot of psychologists would tell you were good for kids. And then finally, you do have to have success. You have to find a way to be competitive. You have to find a way for this. There's a scoreboard for a reason. And so a lot of times you're dealt the hand you're dealt. So how are you going to be competitive with the kids you have? Because that's not an excuse. We all know that this is high school sports. So are we going to have a system in place that feeds to the size of our kids or the speeds of our kids or the talent of our kids? Are you going to have ways to train kids with our weight room that's going to allow kids to be the most successful they can be? And then we're going to sit down and we're going to be realistic about, okay, here's where I think we are. So we're going to win more games than that, whatever that is. And once you start putting goals together, things happen, and sometimes you roll into a championship, and when you don't, you evaluate it. And sometimes when people aren't in the right role, the talk I had with coaches that were leaving here was rarely, "You're terrible at your job. I'm relieving you of your duties." Like, I don't know if I ever had that talk. I often said, "We need to change. We've lost our momentum. You've lost your way. Maybe this didn't go how we thought it was going to go." But usually it was, "I think you've learned enough here to be successful somewhere else." And almost always that was the case. Their next job, they were extremely successful because of the lessons they've learned, because they had maybe not started well, they'd never quite found their footing, or sometimes it was personal. Sometimes they had some personal situations in their personal life that affected how effective they were, and a change was going to be good for them and their family. And I, like, outside of maybe one or two times when a head coach left here to become a head coach somewhere else, they were always successful. And I always felt like it was just that, kind of what you said, that they changed seats on the bus or they changed buses, and it made a big difference.
Hmm. Well, that's wonderful, and because I've talked to a lot of coaches and I've talked to people in the business world, but I've never really had that conversation that we just had about what's it like being that person that's putting all these coaches in place. Which, like, when you hire a football coach, you're putting typically a man. It can be a woman, but a man in charge of, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 15 other men or women, and then, I don't know, 150 kids. I mean, that's a big decision, because you're impacting a lot of lives there. Because if you extrapolate that out even further, then they got siblings, they got parents, they got grandparents that are invested in them. Like, so now you're impacting pretty much the whole community, and that's the one sport that's really big time community based. All of them, hopefully, all of them get there, but just because on sheer numbers and Friday Night Lights,
Right? No doubt.
uh, it draws them in.
A good football coach changes the culture of your school.
Hmm.
And not that the other coaches don't, but they get first swing. They get first swing in the fall at your biggest sport, at your
Hmm.
biggest events. And so they have the most kids, biggest staffs, and biggest events. So obviously, you don't have to love football. You can hate football, but that doesn't change the facts. And so that person not only has to be good at what they do and a good leader, and a good leader of men and a good leader of boys, but they also have to embody all the things you're trying to do in an athletic department. So if you let things slide in that one program, they will slide in all your programs. If
Hmm.
that program is held to excellence, even if they're not winning, if they are speaking professionally, if they're acting professionally, if they're doing the things you're asking everybody else to do, everybody else does them. It's people say football's different, and sometimes they say that in a good way, sometimes they say it in a bad way.
Yep.
In the end, I've seen it too much where culture is set by is helped set by that person and by that program.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I live, my son goes to my boys and my daughter will go to DeSoto with Brian King, who is doing a phenomenal job. And just down the street, the other way is Joel Appleby at Mill Valley, and both those programs have done a phenomenal job of building culture and community here in Shawnee and DeSoto. Let's transition to your new role. And I say new, it's the newest role you're in, the GM at KSHSAA, and kind of if I understand it correctly, you're at the marketing wing of the business. So give me an explanation of what you do and why we made this jump.
Yeah. Well, the when the executive director, Mr. Faflick, and the executive board decided to go down this path of they never had corporate partnerships, but they decided um, one of the knocks or things Keisha gets said about them is their state. You know, I went to an MAYB tournament in the summer, and they all got these rings and a silver bat and hats and gloves, and and that's a
Mm-hmm.
championship event. While we don't do that at our championship events, um, we did feel, I think they felt a pressure to make sure we are giving the ultimate high school experience at our high school championships to our kids. We want to enhance the events, whether that's with being in the best venues we can be in, whether that's making sure that we go to locations that have LED boards, or we go to locations where we can play multiple championships in a day. Like, what can we do to enhance the experience that doesn't take away from the playing of the game? We don't want to be the Savannah Bananas. We still want it to be a state championship baseball game. But there are things we can do, and we don't want to pass that on to schools or the parents, cost wise. So the only way to do that is to have corporate partners. And so they hired this new role. I was fortunate enough, Mr. Faflick called and said, I've always called you PT Barnum in Dodge City. Now's your chance to put your money where your mouth is. And I said, hey, that sounds cool. If we can do a lot in what zip code, surely with all the zip codes, we can do some fun stuff. And so we have in the first year already secured some very solid partnerships with Capital Federal and Mammoth Sports Construction, Children's Mercy, the Kansas Beef Council. I mean, it's a long list of people that have said, yes, we want our messaging at your events, and we want these experiences to be meaningful for kids. Not that they weren't before, maybe more meaningful is a better way of saying it. And so, how can you turn down that job of meeting up with business people in Kansas who go, we love what you're doing, we want to be a part of it, and the
Mm-hmm.
state association who says, hey, we exist to give kids opportunities and to make lifelong memories. How can you not be the person that tries to get them together and enhance our championships for our kids? So it was a no-brainer for me. I've loved it, um, and to see the business community just embrace the ability to get. They're not out there. This isn't NASCAR. We're not hanging banners everywhere. This is messaging where they're saying we want to partner with your local school districts, and we just want to make this experience better for kids, and we want you to know that we appreciate what's going on. That's cool messaging that we now get to share at our state championship events.
Yeah, in this 50 minutes that I've been talking to you, I think you're a perfect guy for that type of role because you're very good at the communication. You understand communication and the relationship aspect of it to bring the businesses in, yet you still get the benefit of shining the light on the kids in these high school athletic sports that you have done for years. So you're marrying essentially your two gifts together. And so
I
I
just
think
I
that's.
just got off the phone. Sorry to interrupt. I just got off the phone with a guy. His name is Reef, and he has an app called The Good Game, and they're partnering with KSHSAA. And part of his motivation, his kid just graduated from Lawrence Free State, but part of his motivation for partnering with us is this app. It's called a digital passport, and it's for kids to be able to sign up of all these events we have our kids signing up to by just using this single app. That's the kind of people we're partnering with. Like, yes, is there a financial component to all of it? Yes. But he really did this because his kids were a part of the association and he saw all the things they have to do to participate in the waivers and all the stuff we have to do.
Mhm.
And instead of just throwing his hands up and going, I can't believe they have all these forms and I can't believe my school can't figure this out or the association can't figure it out, this guy goes out and figures out a way to make it easier and better and better for families. It's just that kind of cool story time after time after time we're getting with our partners.
No, that's anybody can make paperwork easier.
Yeah, no
I'm a fan.
doubt. No doubt. Amen.
I'm a, I'm a fan. I'd love to get your former executive assistant. It sounds like she was on top of things, and
She's
that's a
still
good
there.
one.
That's how they keep working. They probably hired up in their athletic director position as well. But I promise you, she's making it where things continue to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, appreciate that. I want to jump over to some more quick hitters, just some fun questions I have, just things. If I picked up on it, you played college sports. Was it baseball?
Baseball. Yep.
That's what I thought. So, what I would like to know, um, who are some of your all-time favorite baseball players?
And you're going to date me. You know, kids are going to have to look up who these people are. But my son started collecting baseball cards, so he's starting to catch up on some of the old guys.
Mhm.
But at Cal Ripken, I was a shortstop, and Cal Ripken was in the middle of his playing a million games in a row. Cal Ripken, and then my first baseball movie I ever watched was Pride of the Yankees with Lou Gehrig. So I've read every Lou Gehrig book there is out there, and so those would be two of my favorites for sure.
What team do you root for?
Royals, I got to root for the Royals.
Why?
Even though I'm staying in Missouri,
I,
I'll, I'll
I
go
didn't
Royals.
know. A lot of times I talk to people from Western Kansas. They lean Denver or they lean down to Texas. They lean somewhere else.
My
It's
son's
good.
in Norman, and he didn't understand the Rangers. They're big in Norman, so he said,
Yeah,
"What are all these Rangers fans?" I said, "Yeah, that's
that's what I
fantastic."
mean. You were kind of in that area where you could go an equal direction. You're probably just equal distance. So, but we love that you're a Royals fan. That's a good choice. Throughout your time as an AD, one of the things you probably did was attend a lot of sporting events. Give me a handful of some of the best Kansas athletes you were fortunate to see live.
And so we were lucky. We had the tournament of champions out here, and they're like in year 84, I think now. And so I saw lots. I saw Ron Baker out here, and I saw Perry Ellis, and I saw Evan Wessel, and I saw uh, then we bring in speakers to that. So like Tress Way was a really cool guy we got to meet. That comes spoke at our FCA conference, and Kenny Mossman, who was the OU assistant associate athletic director at the time, came and spoke. And so um, we've seen a lot of them in person in Dodge City. And then, of course, we've had a few ourselves. We had Brian Goolsby uh,
Mm-hmm.
out here that he was a little bit younger than me. And then, of course, we had guys that I don't know how good they were athletically, but Travis Goff has done well for himself, and Ross Bjork has done well for himself. And so we've got Mike Montgomery played for the Cowboys, and he played out here. So we've got a nice history ourselves. And then when you add in all the people we got to see at the TOC, that's a pretty long list of guys that we've been able to see.
Kind of a two-part question, a little bit. Somebody decides, hey, I'm going to go to Dodge City for a weekend. Friday night, where they eating? Saturday night, where they eating?
Ooh, that's tough. I could maybe go more than that.
Well, we can do Sunday lunch as well.
my my wife, when the last one became a senior and I stopped being the AD and concession stands stopped feeding us every night, she said we got a bigger kitchen, but she wanted a big island because she said we're just going to go get food and bring it home, and we need a big island for that.
Yep.
So we are big fans of the food trucks, but Prime on the Nine is at our golf course. It's excellent. We go to the Cowboy Capital across the street from Boot Hill. So if you're coming to Boot Hill, you have to walk across the street to the Cowboy Capital. That's excellent as well. Food trucks. Don Taco is our food truck. We eat there a lot. They know us by name. And then also we have Miss Kitty's for breakfast. I mean, Central Station's great steak. I mean, Dodge City's. We got some spots in Dodge City.
Yeah, that those sound pretty good.
Yeah.
So just a couple more. What would be kind of just an overall message that you would put out there to the Kansas coaches? Doesn't matter sport, doesn't matter, just like, here's big picture, guys. Here's what I think you should keep in mind when you go into your sport this year.
Number one, I think it's really enter your season knowing your kids. And I don't mean that, I mean, know their names. I mean, oftentimes I think coaches, especially young coaches, are scared of parents. I always found the large majority of parents are on your side. They want the same thing for their kid that you want for their kid. Be successful, have a positive experience. Most of them even get that they can't all play all the time. They understand that. They want their kid treated right. They want their kid to have a fair shake, and some want more than that. We get it. But to embrace that relationship with parents, let them be on the team, not at a hands, stiff arm away. And then finally, you have to be able to define success, because if you just let the scoreboard do it, number one, that's lazy. And number two, half the teams in Kansas every Friday night lose. So half of our coaches are failures every Friday night, if that's what you're using for the gauge. So know how you're going to measure success. And once you know that, you can coach to that, you can speak to that, and then I think you can also change how kids look at competition. Because if they're just using the scoreboard, that's also lazy. And that's the way kids crash later in life, is because that's all that matters, is the bottom dollar or how many times somebody likes their Instagram post. That's not real. What real are things that you can look at and you can measure and you can say, yes, I did my very best using my God-given ability.
Yeah, connecting as much as you can on a personal level with the kid and their family is something that, regardless of whether they're a kid that essentially never plays or your star quarterback, whatever it might be, if you can connect with the family, ultimately the community, I think you got something special there. Again, you may go 4-5, but maybe you were only supposed to win 2 and you win 2 extra. Like you said, you set the bar or set the goal out in front and be like, take a true look at our team and be like, yeah, I don't think this is a state championship level team, but I think we can get to 7. And then just roll the dice in the playoffs. And last couple questions, a lot more lighthearted, but how much money did Brian Venmo you to say those nice things about him?
Let's just say he's pretty tight, but he was pretty generous for me to make sure he told me to make sure and drop the Concordia in there, that's his current employer.
Yeah.
He had all these stipulations that I had to check off.
I had a feeling that he just had this list that he said, all right, Jay, you got to do this, but you got to say point A, B, C, and D about me, or it doesn't work.
It is interesting. I mean, if we had more time, I would like to run through some of the many accolades he said he accomplished while playing basketball in Minneapolis, but we probably don't have time for that. But
I think we just covered them all.
Okay, there you go.
Last question is: you and Brian go out and play a round of 18. Who wins?
Ooh, the better question. You probably need to change that question. Who loses the most balls, or maybe who ends up with the same ball they started with? Probably me, because I'm tighter. He would just probably not look for it and use a different ball. But the problem is, I was better than him before he started. But once he started, I think he immediately got better than me because I'm terrible at golf. I only play because my son says that's what he wants to do for a hobby, and so I think he wants me to pay when we go, so he invites me along.
That's a
But
great decision.
golf is hard, at least for me, and but I enjoy it.
That's a business decision your son's
It is
making. Very much a business decision.
no doubt, no
So,
doubt, no doubt.
well, Jay, I thank you for coming on. This has been a wonderful conversation. Some different topics that I hadn't had a chance to cover with anybody, and hopefully there's some coaches that listen because I think there's some good tidbits that you put out there that can help an older coach, a veteran that may be set in their ways and may need a refresh on what the priorities should be. And maybe some new young coaches could hear it and realize, okay, it's not all about the X's and the O's and the wins. Those are important, but they should take second fiddle to building a community and a relationship with these kids.
And you said it earlier, coaching's a calling, and I sure hate it if a coach ever takes that lightly
Mm-hmm.
because it's important, and we sure appreciate what they do. And if you have kids, you know that's you're turning them over to a coach for a whole season, sometimes for multiple years, and you trust that they're going to do the right thing by your kid. And so it's a calling, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty cool calling.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Hey, thank you, and thanks for what you're doing on the podcast. It's awesome.
All right. Thank you.
TJ.